It's strange to think that back in the 1860s this was a mining area, and in fact there was a standard gauge railway right up here, 1,000 feet up, which extended all the way down to the coast at Watchet, which is about 12 miles away. And in fact, later in its life, there was a narrow gauge extension from that railway, which must have gone along here somewhere. 2 more mine workings over in that direction. And quite a few people arriving to go on it by the look of it. This is going to take people down to see something of the old mineral line incline and some of the buildings that are still left down at the bottom of the incline, where there used to be quite enough people to make train services worthwhile. But of course all of that's long gone. I've been told what we do, we're going to drive in convoy in a minute to a new car park, and there's plenty of room for all these cars to park, and the organiser does reckon it could be an 8-mile walk, which is a bit daunting for someone like myself. 8 miles. Everybody's setting out at a fair old pace. I'm buffed already, but in fact, gosh, it's a lovely view from here. We parked down in amongst those trees there. Anyway, I don't want to get left behind. This is the original miners' chapel.
Yes.
It was restored in 1911, right? Because it did actually run into disrepair.
It's changed as much as it had 2 windows at the front, and the roof's now pitched where it was. It used to be flat.
All right. Yeah.
And there's a sign, or a gate stone on the sign.
Oh, so look at that.
1861, I think.
That's when it was built, yeah.
Yeah, 1861. So they had their 150th anniversary last year.
Oh, I see the date, yep.
There's a lot of interest in it. You carry on, Phil. I'll bring it.
Just make sure you haven't got any part of it, because they don't.
Yes, I've been in there, so I know what it's like.
You said you'd been here.
Yeah, there was a recent friend had their funeral here as well, so we've been in the last 3 months.
The miners' chapel, and I have a map here of what was called the Brendon Village, as it used to be. We're currently in PHIL Chapel, which is in the intersection of these 2 roads. Some of you may have noticed there's a date stone outside, 1861, that is when it was opened. But this small triangular parcel of land was sold to the miners for £5 from the Abbeville company that were running the mining here, so that they could build their own chapel. And it was a group called the Bible Christians, because there's sort of a Methodist base. But in the village there were also 2 other chapels. You had in front of Seaview House, and we will be walking by there shortly, was the Wesleyan Chapel, which was situated above the stable block. And then further west, next to the incline, and again we'll have a look at that site when we get there, was the Anglican church, which also doubled up as the schoolhouse, and that was a prefabricated building. But looking around this village, there were a number of terraces of cottages, and you had something like 250 miners working here with their families. And there were approximately 60 cottages on this part of the hill. This was the principal site, which is known as the Rallies Cross mine, which was the most productive mine on the hills. There was also a secondary mine that was quite productive, which was called the Canal Pit. And these 2 mines do connect together underground. Cross mine started in earnest really from about 1855 onwards and closed, or was the last mine to close, in 1883. The Canal Pit, which was already declining in output, the records indicate that no more ore was taken out of the Carnarvon towards the end of 1881. These two mines, and perhaps one other, were probably the most productive. Whilst there are a lot of other mines, the output on those is considerably smaller. But it was important because of the nature of the mining here. The ore pockets are not continuous. There's, if you like, isolated lenses. And in consequence, there's no reliability that you're going to produce vast quantities of ore. You may well work out through one pocket and then continue on hoping to reach another pocket of iron ore, which could be either laterally to the west or to the east, or may also have been at depth. And like in those days, there was no means of trial drilling as we can do today to exploit ores. It was very much using the, if you like, the intelligence of the mining manager as his experience as to which way perhaps the ore pocket would go. Or literally, you would just do a trial and drive heading into the ground, hoping that you would intersect another ore pocket. I mentioned to one of the persons as we were walking along, the hills of the Brendon Hills were all at one time the seabed. They're known as Devonian rocks, very old rocks, about 400 million years old. And remarkably, if you take the geology, the land mass was very much nearer the equator, and that's how much it has moved since it was laid down. We're so much further north than it was when it was laid down. Here we are, we're now something like 1,300 feet up, and all that has been uplifted from the seabed. The rocks are known as malt slate, and it's a sort of a clay sediment slate which has been highly compressed by just the sheer weight of the rocks. But as the rocks have been upthrusted, they've folded, and it's what we'll call an anticline, which is that is in effect opposing rocks like that, or you get a syncline, which is that way. So you can imagine the rocks have been pushed from the south, and they've just folded and buckled accordingly. But it is principally in the anticline, between there, the fissure, which runs in effect sort of the length of the Brendon Hills, is where the ore occurs. And it is believed that this is through, if you like, iron-rich solutions coming up through the Earth's crust, have come into these fissures as they were formed, and is then solidified out into iron. So we have different types of iron that can be found here. Near the surface where it's been oxidised, it tends to be the very rich, what we call hematite. As you go down into the water table, it changes into iron hydroxide, which is known as limonite or goethite, two different names. But beneath that, it goes into iron carbonate, which again goes with various names, one being siderite, but the old name was chalybite. Some of the documents or plans you'll see is known as spathic or spar-like, and that was a term the miners gave to it because of the type of structure it sparkled in that form. Okay, so that gives you sort of background of the, so if you like, the geology of the hill.
And it is the iron that makes the soil around here really.
Correct. Yeah. Anywhere where you see soils which are either red, brown, or yellow is a fair indication that iron is present. Give you a sort of a statistic. Iron is the most abundant element on the planet, and it makes up something like well over a third of the mass of the whole planet. However, it's not the most abundant in the Earth's crust. And this is the problem. Being heavy, most of the iron is at the core, at the centre of the Earth, and the lighter elements are towards the surface. But it is widely dispersed, and in consequence it has to be in sufficient concentrations to be viable for mining purposes. Yeah. This area of the Brendon Hills really was very much a marginal area for mining iron, but it did come to significance because it was particularly rich in also manganese, which is another metal that forms on the seabed. But it is also low in phosphorus and low in sulphur, which made it eminently suitable for producing iron and steel. And it was that significance that it was used. Okay. There is a history on the chapel, and it has been left here. If you'd like to have a copy of that, you can do so. But I've been asked to say there is a little dish there for suitable donations, but it will give you the full history of the chapel itself. It was used, as I say, by the miners from its opening day, 1861, up to the closure period, 1883. After that time, there was no economic reason for it to be here, and in consequence it fell into complete disrepair. And there is a photograph there that shows it in the late 1890s, with all the windows gone, the walls blistered, and it was quite ruinous at that time. There are a couple of differences, and when it was reconstructed in about 1910 period, they changed a couple of things. Is the porch at the front that we've come through, whereas previously it had like a flat roof, it now has like a half hick roof on it, and the two lancet-headed windows, similar to those that used to be in that end, and you can just faintly see the plasterwork coming up and hairline cracks where they were. Those have been omitted, and the original date stone, the 1861, which was in the centre, is now being repositioned on this gable end, or this side end.
Is it generally locked?
It's generally locked. I've only, fortunately, had to be able to obtain the key. So I've got another trip on Saturday, so I've got the key for today, right through to Saturday. If you can't hear what I'm saying, I'll speak to one of the other guys. You get trouble. What we have in front of us is the remains of what was a parish of 6 cottages, known as Beulah cottages, and these would have been probably some of the better properties that were up on the hill. Stone constructed under a slate roof, 2-storey, but quite basic. 2 rooms ground floor, 2 rooms first floor, with probably a little privy at the back. The miners were encouraged to, in effect, grow most of their food that they could, whilst there was probably poaching did go on, such as the rabbit would be fairly common. Obviously deer, there are deer here, but they probably would have been prosecuted if they had caught any deer. But no doubt they would have had probably a community pig between them, so that they could, and of course poultry. There are local farms around, so those sort of supplies could be made.
Apparently that's a gooseberry bush, still surviving from one of the back gardens of these cottages.
Okay, we'll walk on down now. The property is now called Hill House, but originally it was called Sea View House, built for Morgan's, who was the mine's manager in 1858. He was a very, very competent miner and then had been brought over from South Wales, previously a colliery man. And one of the things that it needed here was a good relocation package as such, because it was a fairly bleak place to come to. And part of his package was he had the property. He also had use of a company vehicle, which was a horse and gig, and a house cow, which provided dairy use. It's quite a substantial property for one on the hills, and it has been occupied ever since it was constructed, and it's one of the few remaining significant properties. One that housed the Wesleyan chapel above the top of it, and there was also a dormitory block for miners along the back of it. Another little feature here is that the Rallies Cross mine entrance, or the drainage at it, and I've got the map here, is down below Seaview House, and that adit comes all the way through underneath Seaview House, comes through to the front garden.
Is that the water we can hear in here?
This is coming from the mine.
All right.
It's coming from the mine, but that's coming from the top, and I'll show you that in a minute. But it comes underneath the house, and near where that shed is, there's an air shaft that runs down. But in this days when this was constructed, there were two little outbuildings. One was a wash house and a store with a privy. And the privy drops down the air shaft, and the contents are suitably flushed down the hillside.
That is apparently also coming out of a mine shaft, just across the road from where we were looking at the house. Yes, it seems to be coming out of that stonework. Huh?
Just pieces of where the walls were.
These were also cottages, apparently two-storey cottages too. And there's the remains of the Warning House. And the incline, of course, went above that building
Laminated.
and over into that area, I think, where the station was.
Manganese
And I think there used to be a bridge over this road here, which has been demolished, yes. You see where the trap there was? High above us there.